As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie glow across the desolate landscape, I found myself standing in front of a decrepit old mansion nestled deep within the heart of the woods. The air was heavy with anticipation and foreboding, as if the very atmosphere itself were warning me against my intentions. But I had come too far to turn back now, driven by an unquenchable thirst for knowledge that seemed to grow more insatiable with each passing day. My name is Dr. Daniel Jackson, a renowned anthropologist, linguist and archaeologist who has dedicated their life to the study of ancient civilizations and their mysterious rituals. Over the years, I had amassed an impressive collection of artifacts and relics from my various expeditions around the world, but there was one item in particular that had long eluded me: the fabled Book of Shadows, a tome said to contain the secrets of dark magic and sorcery. The origins of this infamous grimoire were shrouded in mystery, with whispers of its power spreading like wildfire through the underground communities that dabbled in the occult. Some claimed it had been penned by a coven of ancient witches, while others insisted it was the work of a malevolent sorcerer who had long since vanished into the ether. Regardless of its true origins, one thing was certain: the Book of Shadows held the key to unlocking some of humanity's most closely guarded secrets, secrets that many believed should remain buried forever. As I stood before the mansion's imposing entrance, my heart pounded in my chest with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, as if even the very trees themselves were holding their collective breath in anticipation of what was to come. With a deep breath, I steeled myself for whatever lay ahead and stepped into the unknown. The interior of the mansion was a veritable museum of macabre artifacts and sinister relics, each one more disturbing than the last. Rusty old surgical instruments hung ominously from the walls, their once sharp edges now dulled by time and neglect. In the dim light filtering through the dusty windows, they took on an almost ethereal quality, as if they were watching my every move with malevolent intent. As I continued to explore the mansion's twisted labyrinth of chambers and corridors, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease growing within me. The air was heavy with an oppressive darkness that seemed to cling to my skin like cobwebs, leaving behind an unshakable feeling of dread. It wasn't long before I stumbled upon the mansion's hidden library, a veritable treasure trove of ancient texts and arcane knowledge. The air in this chamber was thick with the musty scent of old paper and leather bindings, as if the very atmosphere itself were a testament to the countless hours spent poring over these dusty tomes by their previous owners. As I began my search for the elusive Book of Shadows among the towering stacks of forgotten knowledge, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation building within me. The air in this chamber seemed to crackle with an otherworldly energy, as if the very fabric of reality itself were on the verge of unraveling before my eyes. It wasn't long before I stumbled upon a tome that bore all the hallmarks of the infamous Book of Shadows. Its leather cover was worn and frayed, with intricate patterns etched into its surface in a language long forgotten by time itself. The pages within were yellowed and fragile, as if they might crumble to dust at any moment, yet there was an undeniable allure about this ancient tome that seemed to draw me inexorably towards it. As I carefully removed the Book of Shadows from its dusty perch among the countless other forgotten tomes, a shiver ran down my spine, as if some unseen presence had just brushed past me. The air in the chamber seemed to grow even more oppressive, as if the very atmosphere itself were holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. With trembling fingers, I opened the tome to the first page and began to read. Suddenly, a loud creak echoed through the library, causing me to jump in fright. I spun around, but there was no one there. I shrugged it off, telling myself it was just the old mansion settling. I turned back to the book, my eyes scanning the ancient text, but as I read on, the words seemed to take on a life of their own, writhing and twisting on the page as if they were alive. Then I heard it again, the creaking sound, louder this time. I whirled around, my heart racing in my chest. This time, I was sure I saw a shadowy figure darting behind one of the bookshelves. I called out, but there was no response. The air in the library grew colder, and I realized with a sick feeling in my stomach that I was not alone. "Who's there?" I called out again, my voice trembling with fear. There was no answer, but I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from somewhere deep within the mansion. I clutched the book tightly to my chest and began to back away, my eyes darting around the room, searching for any sign of danger. Then I heard a voice, a low, menacing growl that seemed to come from all around me. "Leave this place, mortal," it hissed. "You have no business here." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The voice was inhuman, a guttural growl that sent chills down my spine. But I refused to be intimidated. I'd come too far to be turned away now. "I'm not leaving until I find what I came for," I said, my voice steady despite the fear that threatened to overwhelm me. Suddenly a gust of cold wind swept through the library, extinguishing the candles and plunging the room into darkness. I felt a hand on my shoulder, cold and clammy, and I screamed. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the ground, the Book of Shadows clutched tightly in my hand. The library was empty, the shadowy figure and the menacing voice nowhere to be seen or heard. But I knew that I had awoken something dark and terrible within the mansion's walls, and that it would not rest until it had claimed me as its own. Gasping for breath, I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The room seemed to close in around me, the walls appearing to shift and writhe in the dim light. My mind was a whirlwind of fear and confusion, but one thing was clear. I had to get out of there, and fast. I clutched the Book of Shadows tightly, my fingers trembling as I fumbled for my flashlight. With a shaky hand I managed to turn it on, the feeble beam of light cutting through the suffocating darkness. My footsteps echoed loudly as I hurried through the library, my senses on high alert for any sign of danger. As I reached the entrance of the library, a chilling whisper slithered into my ears, sending a shiver down my spine. "You can't escape, Daniel," the voice taunted, its words dripping with malice. I refused to let fear paralyze me. With newfound determination, I bolted out of the library and into the echoing corridors of the mansion. The mansion had transformed around me, its walls seeming to twist and contort in unnatural ways. Shadows danced along the walls, their movements almost mocking, as if the very architecture itself had come to life. I stumbled and tripped, my pulse racing with each step I took. "Daniel, you're trespassing in a realm you can't comprehend," the voice whispered again, its tone sending icy tendrils of dread down my spine. But I pressed on, my mind racing to find a way out of this nightmare. I had to find an exit, a way back to the safety of the outside world. I rounded a corner, my flashlight flickering as the batteries threatened to give out. Ahead of me a door loomed, a thin sliver of light creeping out from underneath. It was my way out, my ticket to escape the clutches of this malevolent force. With a burst of adrenaline-fueled energy, I sprinted towards the door, my fingers fumbling with the handle. Just as I was about to reach the door, it slammed shut with a deafening bang, the force nearly knocking me off my feet. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest as I turned to face the darkness that now surrounded me. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to grow thicker, as if the very air were pressing down on me. "You can't escape, Daniel," the voice echoed once more, this time closer, as if it were right beside me. I spun around, my flashlight casting wild beams of light into the empty space. But there was nothing there, just the suffocating darkness and the haunting echo of that chilling voice. A cold sweat broke out across my brow as a realization struck me. I had walked right into a trap, a twisted game orchestrated by forces beyond my comprehension. The mansion was alive with malevolence, a sentient entity that sought to ensnare my mind and soul. "Show yourself!" I shouted, my voice quivering with a mix of rage and fear. "What do you want from me?" A low, sinister chuckle seemed to emanate from all directions, echoing through the corridors like a haunting symphony. "You seek knowledge, Daniel, but some knowledge is better left untouched," the voice murmured, its words a chilling caress against my ear. My heart pounded in my chest as I felt a presence drawing nearer, unseen eyes boring into me from the shadows. The Book of Shadows felt like a heavy weight in my hands, a cursed relic that had led me straight into this nightmare. The walls seemed to close in on me, the very architecture of the mansion twisting and distorting. In a desperate bid for escape, I turned and ran down the corridor, my footsteps echoing like a frantic heartbeat. I had to find another way out, a way to break free from this unholy grip. but no matter how far I ran, the mansion seemed to stretch and elongate, the corridors shifting and rearranging themselves. As I ran, I caught glimpses of grotesque paintings on the walls, twisted, nightmarish depictions of monstrous creatures and tormented souls. Their eyes followed me, their expressions contorted into cruel grins. The air grew thick with a noxious scent like decaying flesh and ancient secrets. My breath came in ragged gasps, my body growing weak from the relentless pursuit. Just when I thought I couldn't go on, I stumbled into a grand chamber, its walls lined with rows upon rows of flickering candles. At the far end of the room a pedestal stood, upon which rested a peculiar object, a gleaming amulet radiating an eerie, pulsating light. A sense of both dread and fascination seized me as I approached the amulet. Its surface seemed to ripple and shift, like liquid darkness trapped within a crystalline prison. I reached out, my fingers trembling as they brushed against the cool surface. At that moment, a piercing scream erupted through the air, causing me to jerk back. The scream was a symphony of agony and despair, a cacophony that seemed to reverberate through the very fabric of the mansion. The walls trembled, and the candles flickered and danced, as if possessed by an unholy force. The amulet before me shattered with a deafening explosion of darkness, sending shockwaves through the chamber. And then silence. The room was plunged into darkness, the candles extinguished as if snuffed out by an invisible hand. The air was heavy with an oppressive stillness, broken only by the sound of my own laboured breaths. I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of shattered glass and suffocating darkness, my heart pounding like a drum. "Congratulations, Daniel," the voice whispered, its tone a mixture of amusement and malice. "You've unleashed something you can't control." I turned in every direction, searching for the source of the voice, my mind a tempest of fear and confusion. But there was nothing to be seen, only the impenetrable blackness that seemed to close in around me. A mocking laughter echoed through the chamber, and I knew then that I was trapped, ensnared in a nightmare from which there might be no escape. The mansion had become a living, breathing entity, a realm of darkness and despair, where reality itself had become distorted. And as the darkness closed in, I realized with a sinking feeling that the horrors of the mansion were far from over. They were only just beginning. Stay tuned for Chapter 2 of the Book of Shadows. Thank you for watching my channel. If you have any ideas for a story or would like an addition to a story, let us know in the comments. See you soon, my friends.